Welcome to Two Balls and a Mic, episode 57. We are here on a Monday filled with loyal news. So we thought we'd make it a very special day, very special episode, and have a very special guest. And we're just gonna get right into it because we're gonna talk soccer, Champions League, loyal. We're gonna talk EPL, everything, Mexicano, whatever. I don't know if you speak Spanish. We'll find out. But please go ahead and welcome Mr. Drew STECK. How are you, Drew?
Bueno. What's up, everybody?
How are you, man?
I speak un poquito.
Poquito.
Do you really? Like,
no, it's like I grew up with it. I've been around it my whole life. I took like 2 years of it in high school, but retained it very little because right after that moved to Wisconsin. So I feel like that unfortunately removed a lot of my personal kind of better Spanish kind of flow. So I can hear things, I understand what they mean, cannot speak worth a damn. That's pretty much how it goes.
Did you learn the bad words? Everyone always learns the bad words.
Yeah, the bad words. I watch Narcos,
Nice.
and pick up, the regional dialect difference between Colombia and Mexico and different parts of Mexico. All that stuff's kind of interesting, but it's just trying to like get back in the flow. So that's one of my goals for 2021, along with everything else. Is I'm getting the part of my 30s where like, hey, this physical goal isn't as attainable, so maybe use mental goals like learning Spanish. So it's a hot thing to do right now through the COVID season, but I personally really want to dive back into that part of my brain and unlock those things that are probably in there somewhere and just kind of bring them back out.
That's funny because, I mean, you'll hear the Mexican Spanish and then you hear the Colombian Spanish in Narcos, and then you hear Piqué yelling at Griezmann in Castellano.
Castellano.
La concha de tu madre. You're like, what does that mean?
That's very...
Yeah. It's crazy. I mean,
it's totally different. Yeah.
So it's funny to hear.
I think that we are all here for a specific reason. I mean, more than one reason, hopefully. But loyal, San Diego loyal, man, has brought us together. Not just maybe even Chiva and I, but a bunch of us wanted soccer here in the city so badly. And you've been one of the pioneers here in San Diego. I was actually looking for an interview that I remember at some point that you were in the iHeart Radio studios with Darren and Jordan, vouching for Soccer City. I couldn't find it. I saw it recently, but I don't know where it went. But
I feel like they hit it. It's deep in the dark annals of Unnamed Soccer Podcast. Release the Drew Cut.
100%. I like that. Hashtag release the Drew Cut. But you got your wish, right? We all got our wish. We got a team here in San Diego.
Team. That was the goal. At the end of the day, it was a team that played professionally that gives us a chance at creating a soccer atmosphere here in the city that unifies us as opposed to having our own pockets, right? As you're saying, like we all have our own things. I've got a bunch of logos here behind me, a bunch of EPL clubs that we translated to bum icons through and crest through Travis, which is awesome work. But it's one of those things where we all had these different ways, and the reason those were so popular is because everybody said, hey, do my club, right? And it's so exciting to have your club there, and then also merge that with the idea of being a part of this community locally that's also into the same thing that you're into, but now we have one thing that unifies us, as you said, as opposed to these different factions that maybe a great pickup or a great league that you're a part of in a certain part of a city didn't necessarily translate into connective tissue. Even if you saw somebody with a bumper sticker with a club that you like, you didn't know them or you didn't see them, and now we have this space. Which is kind of what we all found through Soccer City. Was once we all started hanging out, that was the unlimited potential that was pretty cool, was seeing these different people's personalities and their different backgrounds and how that played into where they wanted to be with what this team would become. And so setting that stage, saying what we wanted, gave us the chance to really, I think, have a good idea that when Loyal came in the fashion it did as a USL club, we had a defined like supporter ask in terms of it was very basic, which was like, stay around, fund it well, don't half-ass it. We waited too long to have something that's not done right. So this was really, I think, the culmination of not just me, but a lot of people standing on a lot of people's shoulders to get to this point of having a professional club that speaks to all those different groups and to unify them.
It took a Herculean effort, not just to get this team started, because from the beginning there was talks of it starting in 2021, and I can't imagine that at this point. It's very hard to imagine a world without San Diego Loyal. It's been a year. I mean, if we
Especially imagine if the pandemic would have happened and then the team didn't happen and then we waited to 2021, it would have gotten pushed even farther.
Would it have happened? Like there's so many what ifs that I
so
really
many decisions down to the name. Even not to throw that in there, but like the name possibly could have been different. You just have more time to decide on factors like that you might have, pushed forward, to have that. So it's just even small things that are just like that butterfly effect you're saying of, especially moving the year with COVID, not knowing at the time that butterfly effect would have been massive in terms of the rollout, in terms of what happens when one small thing changes the course. But that 2020 decision, Jerry always jokingly loomed large and called it season 0 for being kind of a jump-started season for what it was. Jerry Jimenez, our communications director for the locals.
Shout out, Jerry.
He's he just was dead on in the fact that it was always going to be this startup season, but it was almost a blessing in disguise in some ways, because we got this chance to incubate a little bit and figure out what the squad was, give it a break, and then kind of come back and see really what it could be. And I think that was, kind of helping forge that identity on the field, as opposed to what was hard to not do was get ahead of ourselves. I think in March was saying like, hey, where's the next song for this club? Where's the next thing for this club? And it was so impossible to do those kind of things when we didn't know the players. We didn't know how they played. We didn't know who played where yet. It's like Jack Metcalf, is he a midfielder? It's like that kind of stuff is what you're figuring out on March 7th.
I think we could talk about it here. Like, there's even players that, are they going to be great? They look great in the kit, and then boom, they disappear. I'm all night.
Exactly.
And
right?
I was shell shocked. Like, wait, this dude just like disappeared.
Yeah, exactly. Mendiola,
players are commodity in USL for sure, and that was the thing we all found out was like that's a thing that we can't hinge on. Or people like Joe who look like a mountain of a man. It's at an injury at the wrong time to the wrong space, in the wrong situation, when you have other players playing in front of you, put you in a position where maybe you aren't there the way we thought you would be, a year later. Whereas like last year, if you asked me at the beginning of the season, could you see a world where Joe Greenspan isn't on his team next year? I'd be like, no, probably. Like, what are you talking about, right? Based on the first couple of games. So yeah, it's really interesting to see that progression over the last year. And I think now again we have more familiarity, and I think the nice thing is returning, hopefully, and we'll talk about it a little bit, but returning at some point here, we can then start to actually play that out as a supporters culture in real time, as opposed to not being able to do what I've always said, which is be an in-person supporters group. We've had to kind of put that on pause and reinvent what that looks like online a little bit. But it's, those kind of things that you hold into as a supporter of this team or a fan of this team, is now we at least could, have something special that nobody else really wanted to jump in on, because at first it was this minor league soccer team in a pandemic season. And then you get to the end there, and all those decisions were justified in terms of faith into the right people and the right process to get the right outcomes in terms of morally what we want, but also I think in terms of play as well. I mean, it was all there at the end. So it really is, a really cool space to be in, but it's also unprecedented again, which is the worst part about the last year. It's all new and different. And this next year, though, we at least have a sense of, and I asked one of the coaches this, I said, hey, is this easier this year coming back and putting together the roster? Like how, it seems easier, but it, maybe it would be harder because you have to figure out who you want to keep and who you want to get rid of. They said it's a million times easier because you have that stage set. You know who your key guys are. And we saw it with the people they brought back, but you also know where to improve. And hey, attack struggled for us when we didn't have 2 to 3 options that were always giving us somebody who was going to score, because we need to have somebody who can score to jumpstart the rest of the offense. Otherwise, it just doesn't work, right? That's kind of what we saw last year. So that's something we know about this team now going into year 2. That just might change, might evolve, but that's a baseline thing that we know about what they're trying to do. And so just those kind of things on the field helps inform the culture off the field and everything else that we do.
Look at this, Drew. Speaking of all these facts now, we have a Drew from a year ago that was really excited before the first game. And we actually have the interview. We don't have it hidden. So check it out.
He's much younger. So I'm number 2. The reason I'm number 2 is because I was setting up the website and opening it up for people to sign up while Steve signed up. So Steve's number 1. But yeah.
So do you want to tell us
a very tight shirt from Tony?
You want to give us a little bit of an explanation of how this all came about?
So at this point, what's going through your mind? Like, again, we don't want to go too far back because we have a lot of the future. But again, what's one of the things that this young Drew had absolutely no idea other than the pandemic was about to, explode. But
he didn't even know that well. Like Drew normally has his ear to the ground for stuff and like sees things coming about a week or two ahead of time. So he's not usually surprised by things, doing a lot of mental chess a lot. But that Drew was so in the middle of trying to launch a supporters group and get to March 7th. That was like the goal. It was like this drive to constantly want to push forward to get to March 7th. And so once we got there, it was honestly like the next day that I was like, oh, this is getting bad. Right. And then you saw them go to essentially when we started looking at Tacoma. Right. And you think, okay, so that day, I honestly wasn't thinking about the pandemic. I was honestly thinking like, and I was thinking, hey, there's this thing going around. Maybe it'll kind of cut into stuff. That's literally all I knew. That's literally like the depth to which, and normally I would have a huge read on this, like got really bad in China. Something's going on there. But yeah, there was just none of that. It was honestly just being in the moment, being there, trying to think like there's not enough time for any one of these. I think that day I decided at some point I was like, hey, since it's going to be a day where I'm taking up most of the night and at least, a lot of resources in terms of mental bandwidth within my household, I decided, hey, let's go to the Little Italy's farmer market. And then I'll jump from there after we did some setup for the tailgate kind of earlier in the afternoon. I'll go to the Little Italy. I'll do that. I'll throw another thing into this day that is already jam-packed with way too many things and was like rushing over there and had to get to a pre-ceremony, then setting up the tailgate, then letting everybody in. So it was just by the time you talked to me there, it was like probably 3 to 4 straight hours of like thing to thing to thing to thing and sensory just overload from being at a farmer's market and like just eating and being on the street in Little Italy and then coming full circle to and that was a meeting that I had literally I think at the same restaurant maybe a year or two prior with somebody who's now part of the Loyal organization, and we were talking about that opportunity. So it is really interesting that like that all kind of happened and kind of came the way that it did. And it was just this weird blur of a day that kind of blurs together a whole, as you said, few years. If you go back to kind of the genesis of really trying to push for a pro team here, it was really interesting to see that whole thing. And you guys met me in that moment, which was not really I would say I was floating outside myself. I was just like a person talking. I was like, hey, I'm talking here. And then like my head was like, okay, now I have to go over here and do this. Drew. Or I have to go over, is there lights in the tent? Is the sound system still working? Is anybody getting tacos? Okay, I need to get tacos. So really can get tacos. That kind of stuff where you're just, or the beer line. Holy crap, the beer line's really long. Wow, the beer line's getting really, really long. Is there anything we can do about the beer line? So as somebody who's just, in a position when people look around and go, somebody should do something about this, and you're that person, that just kind of becomes your mindset is what's the next thing somebody's going to look for, in terms of that stuff. But Jason did a great job at the tailgate, so it wasn't too bad. It was just that we had asked for extra beer lines that we got there on the day of and found out they weren't there, and we already talked about this on our podcast, but that was kind of the stuff you were thinking about in that moment. Was just like, wow, I really hope Tony doesn't ask me about the beer lines. That was probably more what I was thinking, I think.
Well, that was a younger Drew that we saw, and obviously moving forward after the pandemic, we've talked ad nauseum about this time, but there was an even younger Drew with some wise words. I want to see if this still resonates with you pertaining to your thoughts on on time.
You know what, Peter? Sometimes time isn't just relative to tacking a number on it. Time is, to a Smurf, 2 episodes is huge.
Wise words.
So in the life of a Smurf, how huge
kind of
was
like
this year?
Shiva right now.
Hey, they're like a light blue.
I was gonna call Tony out for being Smurfish too with his tight blue shirt there in that previous clip.
It was incredibly tight. I've since
that's great research you did there. You typed my name into YouTube and you saw it came up. I apologize.
Oh,
but yeah, there's some gold. There's some gold nuggets in there. I will say that quote to Peter is something that I completely improvised and I was never written.
Did you ever get your briefcase back at the end? I watched the entire thing.
I did. Sean lives here now, which is the weirdest part. Like he stayed in LA for a number of years, or Orange County. I think he lives down here now. And I was like, we need to do stuff post-pandemic. We need to do more movies. So I might work with Sean and Peter again soon, who I made a lot of stuff with back when we lived in Orange County for a couple years there. And really love those guys. They're just great creators and had a really cool YouTube channel called Take Zero that literally was a tried to be a film school for just anybody. Just like, hey, here's shots or rules that film school might teach you, but here's a way to understand that concept in a basic way and apply it to just your YouTube video that you're making for, pottery class or whatever, or telling a story, just a really basic story, that kind of stuff. So, it was a fun project to work with them, and they're always kind of creating stuff. So if you ever check it out, it's Take Zero. And then kind of off of that, you can find Sean and Peter and kind of what they're up to.
Perhaps we'll find a Bandana Brothers too.
I mean, if
Bandana Brothers do that, yeah.
If that's what's happening,
that's another project. Yeah, back
We're
when,
huge fans now. We're
if
huge
you can't
fans.
tell, Drew has many film projects and partners, but there's it happened to do with geolocation. So I was living in Milwaukee at the time, and Rick I worked with at Comedy Sports there, and that's where I kind of fell into. I've been doing improv and theater since I was about 6 or 7. So it's, for me, it's always been just part of what I do. And people are sometimes surprised to learn it because it's just so a part of who I am that it's not like, hey, I'm a theater person. It's just like one element of what I do. But, I haven't acted on stage in probably a long time, but the film stuff came out of that. And so really going to school for film and going to school for history. Rick and I worked together after Comedy Sports on making what we called the sketchbook, which was just a series stuff that we wrote over kind of a couple weekends, and Rick mostly wrote like 90% of it, I think. And there were some improvised bits, and I directed most of it. So it was kind of dual influence in terms of writing, directing, and written with a voice that we had kind of crafted through our podcast. That was one of the earlier podcasts on the internet called The Internet's Maximum Potential, and kind of had some callbacks and link-ins to things from that. But it was just these kind of weird characters in this weird town with different stories. Things from child on child violence to a guy canoeing to work. It kind of had everything in the sketchbook, but Bandana Brothers is the highlight for me. I think Bandana Brothers, you could probably create a whole universe.
Yeah, Chip and Domino they found who killed their father, and we never got the conclusion of it. For those that are listening that are like, what the fuck is going on right now? Let me just fill you in. This is the Drew that I wanted. This is just right where I want you, Drew. I want everybody to realize how cool everybody is that's involved in this. Like, how did you use, if anything, how have you used this knowledge, this wisdom that you have brought this into San Diego? How have you used it with the locals, and how do you plan on using it in the future?
I mean, there's a lot of parallels, I like to say, between just kind of projects and managing projects in different facets. So for my work, I manage IT projects and application and web development for a major corporation. And before that, I was doing a lot of education around IT and the products that we were developing, and then moved more into the development role, from some of the education and just kind of years and knowledge. But when I was doing that, what I was applying was, some of the video stuff. I actually would do videos for training or do videos for just kind of fun introductory stuff. One time I did one as Elvis, I think, and no one will ever find that because it's on a corporate server and it's behind a firewall. But I'll put that one out to you guys to see if you can find it.
I'm on the hunt now, right now.
Yeah, so that's stuff I've done recently that really just doesn't go anywhere because it's there, but it's been nice as an outlet to do that kind of stuff. And then with the locals, as I said, project management within film and IT is actually not as off as you'd think in terms of collaborative process. It's like building art. The cool thing I like about development versus film, and they both have their advantages. One thing with film is once you put it out, there's no like 2.0. You could do a director's cut, you could do a Zack Snyder cut, but people already saw the movie. It's not going to make me think that Justice League didn't suck the first time I saw it, right? Like, it's never going to wipe that out of my brain. And same with, Godfather. You can release all the cuts of it. You're always going to remember, kind of the visceralness of it, regardless of, how they structure, this cut a second later than this one. So for me, that's been like the interesting thing is making those decisions sometimes in a vacuum that affect a lot of people and their vision and what the work they put into something, from a certain position, whether it's an editing chair, a director chair, or even being the person behind the camera, you're trying to capture all of that, right? So it's all just different seats and vantage points and working with people, trying to see where they're at. So in the locals, it's a lot of trying to read, what is somebody doing over here? What are they doing over there? And how do we get them to work in frame together, as opposed to shooting different movies or having different visions. So for me, that's always kind of how I apply that skill set, is trying to make sure that everybody at least feels the same and is talking the same about what we're doing, I think. And I think that's usually, kind of hurting kittens, if you will, sometimes, or little puppies in the face of bum. But yeah, they're awesome people, so they're just super talented. So it's usually just kind of reining in or trying to make sure that it all fits within a narrative that makes sense. And Jerry does a great job with that with communications as well. But you know, it's really fun just to see what somebody like Travis creates and then be able to say, oh, well, here's the filter. You know, the director note I would give you on this is this, and then seeing where he goes with that. And it's just like, you know, wildly, you know, even better than I thought. So that's the kind of experience I'd say that makes it just like kind of doing the sort of stuff I was doing with film translates into even just working with people on something like a supporters group.
I love it.
And we are going to be making some videos as well. I'll get to that in a second. But
Nice.
Oh,
that's really what you want to make. Yeah.
No, yeah, and I mean, we want to get started because specifically with the locals, because the locals are doing some great things. Other than obviously the Loyal Locals podcast, you can find it everywhere: Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can find it on YouTube. Some great in-depth talks and interviews, and some of the great stuff that you yourselves are doing. I'll go ahead and share the screen for the 2021 membership. If you want to go ahead and just take us through a little bit of what this entails. We're already members. I don't think I told you, but we're members again.
Yeah.
But if you want to just take us through what the membership entails this time around and what some of the cool things that you guys have planned.
Yeah, it's a little different. It's last year was really simple. It was just one price. You got the all-inclusive package with the scarf, with the pin, with the card. You know, if you ordered at a certain time, if you didn't order at a certain time, that's where the pin was kind of the incentive there, right? That was the only real difference, and that just was based on when you ordered, same price either way. This year, we decided there was kind of a few considerations with membership, and we're very excited, honestly, just to be turning this corner because it feels like for us, it's the beginning of a new season. You know, it felt like, oh, well, Loyal's beginning their season, they're going to put out dates. And the next question is like, can we go? And if we do go, what does dues look like? And what does, you know, like, what does the section look like? So all of that falls off the back of starting our membership for 2021. And so there was considerations, there was thoughts of, hey, maybe we should roll this over completely. You know, and the tough part there is a financial decision is we did very well last year with merch, with certain things, but at the end of the day, you do need to probably, as we go back, there's things that we never did purchase or things we planned on bringing into the section that we just never had time for. We just didn't have games for in terms of TIFO costs, things like that. If we're going to be doing more in a year, you're going to need that kind of stuff built up in terms of reserves, especially from dues. So not to get into the finances of it, that's not very exciting, but
it's the best, Drew. I don't know what you're talking about.
Like, that's why you look at charging a little bit, right?
Yeah.
As a membership. And beyond that, I think it's also as a belonging. You want to make sure that people are serious about wanting to belong to this, that they're not just a name on a list, but they're somebody who actually wants to be a part of a supporters group. And we're not asking for 90%, we're asking for 100% when you're there. You know, like that's the kind of thing from this group that I think is great, is everybody holds me accountable, holds anybody accountable. It's like, hey, we all say, hey, this is, you know, we're doing this together because we want to do the best and be the best supporters group, you know, not here, just in the world, like that we can be, right? That's how we feel as San Diegans. We feel an immense amount of pride about this and what we're trying to do. So I think from that's always the consideration is, you know, making sure that there's a sense of engagement with everybody on that in terms of a discussion. It'll always be a discussion moving forward, but we felt like doing a 2-price tier where you have something that's kind of a nominal fee where you can renew your membership or you can become a member, but you don't have to buy the scarf if that's not something you want, just because everybody has less money these days. It's a statistical fact. Almost all of us as Americans have, even if we have been fortunate through the, you know, kind of 2020 year, most of us, you know, our long-term bank accounts, they're looking a little leaner than they did before. And so if you're going to be buying season tickets, or, you know, you had them rolled over even, which is great from the club, and we felt like that was kind of a leading the way move to make us consider, you know, making sure that we kept this priced competitively. And that's really why, again, I think it's a fantastic deal in terms of being a part of this group, getting the discounts. If you just go get a few beers at these places, you know, and come to an event, hopefully, you know, by the end of the year, God willing, you know, that to me, it's like, hey, that's entry fee for itself, just for $10, and you get a really dope keychain. That's pretty cool. That's a scarf keychain. I don't know if anybody's noticed that yet, but
100%.
It's scarf chain, which I've never bought or seen before, and so I guess we're pioneering. I hope some other people probably did this, but it's cool. I don't know. I've never seen it before, so I thought it was pretty cool when I saw it. And then the scarf itself is amazing. So I do think if you want to pay the $23.50, which is with shipping including, we did pick up last year. What we found out was, since we only had one game, we had maybe like a fifth of the people who were supposed to pick up actually pick up.
Yeah.
And we shipped out a lot, and we still have a lot to ship out, and I'll get to that in a second. But $23.50 is the price for the all-inclusive scarf. You get the keychain as well, and then all the benefits are the same. It's just the plus scarf price. And if you feel that much more committed, or maybe you want to commit your membership, and if you're a family of 5, you don't have to get 5, at that price.
Yes.
And maybe 5 scarves.
Yeah.
Last year we had 3, so some people would buy 2 or 3 just to say, hey, I'll get all 3 scarves. That's great, and I want to support, and then I can have a founding member for all my family, which is great. And this gives you an ability to renew. Again, just give it, if you do have a larger family, you probably have not had a great year in terms of just looking at your bank account and wondering, things you want to be involved in and support. We want to make that an easy decision for you. So hopefully this is, and if it never isn't, it's always something we can, talk about with you and try and figure out for next year and make a better decision on that. But for us, we felt like this is the right thing to do. They're going to get a ton of push either way, because again, the scarf is worth it, the money without the membership. And so I think with the membership, it's an easy sell. And then again, that $10 price point for me was, if you really don't believe in it that much, that's a price of a Netflix or something like that. We're going to try to make that worth your while.
Yeah, Netflix hasn't been $10 in a while.
Yeah, I know. It's like what? It's like, yeah, it's better than that. So you can't even see a movie for that much, and you get to belong to this really sweet group of amazing people who are super, super cool.
Which, by the way, if you go to Three Ponqueros and you get a discount if you're a local, check out Tacos del Vaquero, who's just right in front of the Three Ponqueros.
There you go.
Really, really good tacos.
Right in front of it.
I like this.
But no, this is one of the things that makes this whole soccer project, I'm just going to say soccer project because it is loyal, the locals and everybody around, in and or around. The underlying factors that the community is always connected. And I feel like that's always, well, I mean, other than the fact that everybody's told us from the locals and the loyal, that's what the number one priority is, to get the community involved and all that good stuff. I think it's been successful. And I think the fact that you guys are also taking that into consideration, that look, everybody's in a tough situation. Most people are in a tough situation. But even then, that's a testament to, how much people actually believe, not just in the club, because you can spend money on the club itself, you can buy season tickets, but a supporter's membership is just going above and beyond. And putting money in it is that extra step that just makes you realize, like, wow, like maybe you do have something. How many members did you guys end up having this last year?
Last year we got over like 400. Steve always likes to throw out the exact number. I'm not going to do that. I think it was over 420 or I like to say 420. Yeah.
Nice.
No, four
No.
over that many. So it was kind of middling 400s, and that was a really great number, we thought, for being. We capped it about halfway through the year just because we didn't know what to offer. Like at that point, it was, what are we offering you membership to? If we're not really sure what this is going to look like, and even through the end of the season, are there going to be games? That's the kind of stuff where it's just we didn't know, through pretty much the end. So it was just really hard to tell. And so this year it's a little easier. It's a little more structured. We know even if we don't go back till midway through the season, it's a very strong likelihood we'll be able to go to games by the, at least middle, if not beginning part of the season for people who are season ticket holders, hopefully. Fingers crossed, everything. That some new meteorite doesn't crush into the earth at this rate. But otherwise,
don't jinx it, man. Don't jinx it.
Yeah.
Shit.
more positive light, I would say. It's we have a better sense of like what at least this can look like this year. And so I think in that sense, it just makes more sense to roll it out this way. And we're just really excited to see what that looks like, because it is it's a fun prospect to think, hey, I haven't got to do this in not only a few months, I haven't got to do this in a year.
Yeah, exactly.
With anyone. So let's say, 2-3 months from now, if we have some really good months of vaccinations and numbers, we can be, doing some approximation of what we did last year and Torero, standing behind that goal, and getting back in there. And so we have about a quarter of the people from last year, to not give you like exact numbers, but about a quarter so far have renewed, I think. And then we've had a few new memberships as well. So we're looking at a really good return just in like a weekend or so of people coming back, which is pretty exciting for us, because that number of 400 did not happen the first week. I will tell you, it happened. It shot up a lot. The last month or so before the season. So it's always that kind of people will see it. People like us, people maybe listening to this have already, gotten their membership, or maybe they're doing it while they're listening, and you'll see them trickle in. We'll see them literally trickle in, like, hey, here's one, every couple hours, once we roll it out. So it is a really just consistent thing that, don't feel like there's any right or wrong time this year. Hopefully, we can turn them around by the time we get to preseason, so that you're getting your scarves, you're getting your keychain somewhere by there, right? So that we're watching our first few games, holding our 2021 stuff. That's always kind of the goal, just to keep it in mind for the future. That's really where we want to hit, is make sure that you get your stuff in before then. But that's last year. One of the things we had was the first time I knew COVID was going to be a problem was our pins got held up in China.
Yikes.
And that was what I knew of COVID. And it was a joke. It was like, can you believe COVID held up our pins? Yeah, it's crazy. And then it was like, can you believe COVID canceled life? That was what we were talking about leading up to the game. Was like, oh yeah, that was one of the things that happened. But it's, and it's a harbinger in that way for what was to come. But it's in terms of this year, that's the kind of fun part of this, is playing that out to what that might look like. Tailgate's probably not till something significant changes in the weather of most people's inhibitions. The way that we had it last year, unfortunately, it's just too small a space, and the way that we're trying to stage it. But probably some form of March if we can, or safe March maybe, or even then just some form of kind of pregame. Hey everybody, let's huddle, not huddle, but like kind of get an energy going in some fashion. So we will not just consider, taking what we have on a plate, but also trying to do more to adapt to whatever this is going to look like. But just being given the privilege to come back, honestly, would be fantastic. And having that opportunity, and again, singing with masks on, or what that looks like, right? Like all those other things are just, awesome questions to be asking, right?
And a good place to go is Discord, right?
What's that?
A good place to go and find everything out is Discord, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Discord. Yeah. So if you want to jump in this discussion as a member, or if you just became a member, or if you're signing up while we're doing this, so Discord, which is a chat app, it's used by a lot of gamers. But if you're new to it, it's just an app on the App Store. You download it and you point it at a server. Our server is a link we send you when you become a member. You join there, and then you can join the discussion, list all this kind of stuff, right? So you get the ability to engage and talk to just directly, and throw out anything, and have other locals be able to chime in and play off that. If there's a new piece of news, you can get reactions directly from us that you're not going to see on Twitter, probably.
Yeah.
You're not going to see in some other places. It's a safer space in that sense, to kind of throw something out there, or ruminate about something that doesn't feel like you have to make a proclamation to the world, but you're saying it to your friends, like we're all in the bar or in the pub together. That's kind of the idea with Discord, and what I really found fun about it. So thanks for the shout, Chief, because it's definitely the place where stuff is happening.
Yeah, no, and we had the chance to. We just got the chance to join the Discord and get involved with it a little bit in those games where not everybody was allowed to. We had inside pictures, and then we tried to inform everybody, hey, this is happening, hey, this and this and this. Again, when that Junior Fleming's thing happened, the Discord was like exploding, and like everybody was just like, what's happening, what's this, what's that. And it's a good community to have, and it felt like we were all together, even though we weren't even looking at each other. It's a chat link, but it really did a great job of uniting people.
But we're finally gonna have some games. We have the preseason schedule out, which was great to find earlier in the day. What's your take on it? I mean, we have Galaxy, we have Sounders, some pretty big teams. We have a game that we don't know what's gonna happen. Cesar Hernandez on Twitter actually mentioned that there's no Mexican league games that weekend. So
yeah, interesting.
You would never know,
Club
right?
America, duh.
Club America, Chivas, our friends across the border. Who knows?
Yeah.
My big question is, will Chicharito play against us?
I don't know.
Imagine.
I don't know.
That'd be great.
That'd be great. That would. I want that. Yeah. The mystery game is very clearly, I think, somebody who they just haven't been able to either do it, or they want to make more fanfare with, which would explain, somebody across the board, or definitely any Liga MX team. Honestly, even Leon coming here would be fantastic.
Oh,
as
yeah.
well, right? Because you got the tie with Landon. So I mean, there's always opportunities for it to be not just Cholos, which is pretty obvious because it's easier to get somebody across the border from directly across the border these days than maybe flying a whole team and doing that whole thing these days. But obviously they're able to make it work for Champions League and other things. So, a little friendly here where it's pretty much in a bubble. Probably in Chula Vista is my guess, just because, again, we talked about it on our podcast a little bit, but it seems like USD is probably not going to allow them to play at Torero while fans are there, or maybe they will. There just wouldn't be fans there. So that would just kind of be the thing. So either way, even if they are playing there, that would be there, but obviously it might just be easier to do it where you're training. In Chula Vista, they got a great setup there. It just isn't set up well for fans. So that is kind of the thing that's in the back of our mind is, it's great to see these games happening. The club is really committed to putting on an atmosphere, at least digitally, even if they can't in person, and even if they can't via telecast, kind of giving you something to play along with online and get a sense for. And really, sometimes these are just extended practices. So there is kind of a sense of some of these might be more like I might be more interested in the Seattle game. Seattle game could also be a dud because they're playing their second team. And their first team played LA Galaxy that same day, who they're scheduled, I believe, to play against. So you just don't know in terms of who some of these squads are going to look like, especially with a Seattle side that seems like they're consolidating, some of their two-team and kind of what they're doing there. So it is interesting to see the schedule. I think the LA Galaxy thing almost feels like a boilerplate, like preseason game every year, along with possibly Cal Fullerton up there. And I used to live actually a few blocks from that stadium, so I wanted to go last year, but it was just kind of fell on a weird date. So obviously this year probably won't be going. But if we ever do go up there for preseason again, it would be kind of fun to go to Cal State Fullerton and check out that stadium, but with Loyal playing there, even if they're playing a weird 100 or 120 minute untimed match with like 7 subs or whatever they do during these weird preseason with no rules. You have 12 guys on the pitch at a time, I guess. I'm not really sure what's happening in some of these when I see the tweets where they're like, this guy got given a red card, but they don't actually take a player off. They just take him off. And there's it's a red card in a preseason match. That's the kind of stuff where you're like, what?
Yeah.
But it's preseason for refs too, I guess. I don't know. But it's a really interesting makeup, I think, with the MLS squad. Talent at least in there from Seattle to kind of buffer it a little bit. Felt pretty boilerplate. Otherwise, which is great. That's kind of what you want. You don't want to give away too much. But New Mexico will be really exciting to see, just kind of like Reno last year, I think, a measuring stick for, hey, this team's either got it. And I think we knew we had something when we saw that Reno game. We're like, oh, we have something here. Well, there's definitely something to play with here. And Reno actually ended up being better than, what we did by the end of the year. But it definitely felt like, we were putting something together there. And so against New Mexico, I think that'll be a good measuring stick, even if it's not televised, to get a sense of what that score line might be, just in terms of like for like talent, trying to match up and probably play the most real up soccer, if not for that mystery match that we'll find out. I'm sure.
But it's a really exciting season coming in because of also the players and the quality coming in. Obviously, you had a good base staying from last year. You lose a couple players here and there, some that still haven't been announced yet. But off the top of my head, I think of Colin, Jack as a base. We have Elijah coming back, Austin, who we caught up with at the San Diego Loyal tryouts this past weekend, and talk shit to me. It was the first thing he did. I was kind of upset. Dude, not even upset. Like I was like,
he's fucking buff as fuck, bro.
He doesn't want you coming for his job, man. He's serious.
He was very serious because we asked him. Well, first of all, he came over ripping out of his shirt and
at first I saw him and I was like, who the fuck's this guy? Like he had a haircut. I didn't recognize him at first. And I was like, oh shit, that's Austin. Holy shit, this motherfucker's tall.
I mean, well, he's as tall as me, so it's fine. I'm taller than you.
But when you're slimmer and buff, you look way taller, like compared to you. Dang.
But no, he was like, hey, like I thought you were gonna be out there, trying out and this and that. Shit, yep. And I was like, oh, well, obviously there's a lot of young talent right now that I wouldn't want to be eclipsing. My time will come. There was a gordito or two that came out of it, and I was like, you know what? I should have tried it out. But no, like Austin, when we talked with him, he was saying how stronger this team is coming back. Not just necessarily physically, emotionally, they're prepared.
You mentioned Ben Spencer's coming back stronger than ever, which is good to hear.
he wants revenge.
Yeah.
Ben
He's
Spencer
getting that
wants revenge.
preseason hype for sure.
Oh, yeah.
It feels like everybody's trying to like kind of low key hype him. On our podcast, we're like low key like shaming him to kind of I think build a narrative that he can break out of. But
Yeah.
I gave him a little bit. I'm a hold up kind of play guy myself. I felt like he did some of that well, but it did feel like his just shot was off last year, whatever that is.
He has a lot
like
to prove.
golf. It's like anything else. I mean, your foot mechanics, your leg mechanics sometimes just need to be reset a little bit, like reset the body, do some stuff a little bit different, just shake it up, and maybe that's what he's doing. And went to see a shaman up the coast, surfing or something, and
There you go. Yep.
got it right, I guess. I don't know. Whatever he's doing, as long as he bangs in some goals here,
For reals.
and doesn't hurt anyone else or himself, I am all for it.
And then when we talked to Austin
to bring out the goals.
Yeah, when we talked to Austin, I mean, he was we were talking about that young goalkeeper that we just signed. He was like, "Yeah, the kid's good," and I mean,
I don't think he took too kindly to me bringing up Trey Muse because
I brought it up. Competition.
Yeah, no, I brought it up in the sense like, hey, that new kid coming in is pretty good, and he's like just deadpan, like it's gonna be a good competition. It's gonna be just. I was like, okay, like all right, there we go.
At the end of the day, competition brings the best out of everyone, which is what we want for the team. So.
It's like when you're established at a job for a little bit, and then you're like, "Hey, I see my career in front of me. I got my like rise figured out."
Mm-hmm.
And then this other person comes in, and they're like kind of butting into your space a little bit.
Yeah,
kind of what's going on there. And like maybe you'll be frenemies, maybe you'll work it out, maybe you'll be best friends. You don't know. Maybe it's like stepbrothers.
Exactly.
But there's that period of the movie where they're trying to kill each other with a bike and and a bat. So, it's sometimes you got to grind those two, axes off each other to become sharper or whatever the, weird like metaphor is.
Diamonds cut diamonds, right?
That's
something like that.
Someone else who's actually excited to be back is Jack Metcalf. I believe you messaged him on Twitter.
Yeah,
right?
I hit him up. I'm like, because I was like, all right, Austin says that he's ready, that the team's ready. Like I saw the conviction in his eyes. I'm like, hey, Jack Metcalf, by the way. Now there's two. I'm like, hey, I talked with Austin. He seems absolutely pumped for the next season. Mentioned that Jack Metcalf, had been laser focused, and Jack being the great guy that he is, enjoying the coast. That man loves the coast and his dog. He said, I think we overcame a lot in 2020, and having a year of working together will benefit us so much in 2021. I also asked what's it like to have another Jack with an accent. He didn't respond to that. But I mean, it seems like everybody is in that same level. Do you feel, from the reports you're reading, from what you're seeing on social media, obviously they show us the best aspects, obviously, but it is not just from a supporter standpoint, but on field, are you expecting better things than last year? Because it was a little rocky at some points last year.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I think they have, again, that sense of who's going to work, who's not. One of the other problems you had last year was there's just too many players. Like there was, like as you said, we had probably 5 to 8 more players than we knew what to do with and could work into the squad in a reasonable way. So no way that you can control that would probably build some, not level of contempt at all, but definitely just guys not firing. Right? Like it creates an atmosphere where it's, you have somebody sitting on a shelf, you try and pull them off and play them. It's not going to be as conducive as working them into a team that already has, elements working, that this works with this. And we found that out at the end of the last year, kind of what really works well together, what doesn't, and built a very solid foundation. So I think in that sense, it does feel like everybody's using the same terms of, again, and the things you look for is, are they speaking the same language? Are they, kind of talking the same direction? You've heard the word championship thrown around a lot. That's a good word to set your sights on, especially with our coach. It's probably in his mindset every year that he's been a player, that he wanted to be in that conversation. So it seems like it's just kind of, the people talk about a championship mindset. I think you'd have to be realistic about it, and I don't think he realistically last year would have said that was an option. But I think looking at the field, playing the way they did at the end of the year, and knowing that they have a foundation that's great, and pulling in players who have been historically successful in this situation and in this league, that seems like a recipe for success. People who really wanted to be here, people who have fought to be here in some ways, that to me feels like more of a San Diegan thing as we keep building, this club and the culture. I've always said that part of what keeps people in San Diego, and I told the club this when they first came more in, I said, what's different about here versus Sacramento, I think, is in a lot of places, even in Los Angeles, people end up in Los Angeles. They don't end up in they do, but they choose to stay here at some degree, right? You can take a higher paying job. There's more opportunity in almost any field. If you go somewhere else, we're somewhat of a land island, right? In terms of how we're set up. And so there's just not enough to build in certain directions. We're resource constrained in that way. So it's just more expensive and generally more difficult in terms of quality of life if you're trying to do certain types of work. So for a lot of us, unless you are a certain type of work, even then, you choose to live here because the sunshine, the people, the culture, the beaches, all of that is more worth it to you than paying less in rent. And
Yeah.
I had several friends move to Texas not during just this, but over the years, who have told me, how great it is. And then obviously when you have things that you see what happens there, not that our, foundations here are super solid in a lot of areas.
Yeah.
Like there's certain reasons you don't live in a place where that's a remote possibility. Right.
Yeah.
Or that's why it is, cheaper to live some of these places. So, that's why, not that money makes everything happen, but it is, as I said, a factor in a lot of people's lives, and it drives decisions. And so I think the people who end up here choose to be here generally, as opposed to you see families bleed out a little bit, as opposed to staying here generation after generation, which I think has happened more recently. And so that's one of the things I'd love to see change, but building communities like this around loyal things that you feel connected to, even if you are working overseas through the military, or just move away for a job and want to come back, but it keeps you connected. I found that when I did live in Wisconsin is through that other team that was charged to a credit card and then moved around a few times. They did make you feel connected. They did make you feel like home. When I watched on a Sunday night, I would see the skyline or I'd see the bridge, and that would make you feel like you were home. Just for a few seconds, or being in the stadium and hearing the shouts and hearing the crowd that I'd heard as a child, and being around those sights, those almost smells that come back to you. That's the kind of stuff that you can build in this, and has been great for sustaining a lot of people throughout this pandemic, is those memories. It's not just watching the game, but it's associating those memories with what you're actually watching, and internalizing that to bring that kind of endorphin and joy and love back into your life, because it's been a tough space. But for a lot of us, that's how we cope, is building that community and building that ideal of what we think it should be, even if sports don't always live up to that. Right at the end of the season, how many times do we win a championship in the city? None. And so that's not in every sport. Soccer's kill it.
Yeah.
But it's,
shout out Soccer's.
But even recently, it's been so hard. They've tried so really hard to win. Maybe this year, but like they've tried so hard to win a championship, and we thought last year was the year. But it's that it is very, very hard. And so, but the ideal of thinking, hey, the Sockers could, and seeing how they put it together and see the ways they're trying, and now with Loyal doing it, and now with the Padres doing it, it is awesome, because you have the sense of we fought for it, but it's also seeing that, again, the word I used was foundation, but I'm going to go back to it. The way you build things up to get a monumental status is by having that base, and then building slowly. You see every statue, it's partially about the base with a statue, right? Is it lifted up? Is it on the, is it a high base? Is it what so as you build monuments and things people look up to in a city, and that's what sports are to a lot of us, they represent things even though they're owned by people. And that's why we say owned by no one, is because we want to drive home that this culture isn't owned by anyone regardless of the club. And that's really the idea here, is building that as a base for whatever we are able to lift up and say, these are our ideals that we all hold together, and makes us a community, and makes us one.
Man, that's just I can listen to you talk for forever. Like, the way
I told Travis today, I was like, I'm a Costco of words, man. He had me write something, and I was like, it came out like 4 paragraphs.
Oh shit!
Like, I'm just gonna use the first one, and I was like, okay, this is for something totally unrelated. And I was like, yeah, I'm a Costco words man. They only come in one size.
No, but it's good in a way, because there's people with the sport that may not be able to express themselves in such a way and articulate it to other people that may not necessarily understand the sport, and the fact that it doesn't need to be always articulated in such a way, just enjoyed, and just you don't need to do that. I'm not saying you don't need to do that. Please do keep doing.
Oh,
But you're also involved with
feel it.
things.
You feel it. You don't have to just say it. You feel. I'm trying to say
Yeah.
it because we just feel it. It's hard to say. So people like listening to me talk because I can say out loud sometimes the things we feel that are hard to say, but it's just something you feel to your core, and then trying to express that through words. So that's really what I've loved about our podcast. And thanks for giving me the chance to espouse here, and I'll be more quiet and a background voice, I'm sure, through the rest of the podcast. But
No.
You know what I'm feeling?
My Costco word packages.
You know what I'm feeling? I'm feeling that this Sacramento thing that went to shit is good for San Diego in the future. Because, we might slide in those DMs in the MLS and hopefully become a team in the MLS in the near future.
Maybe. I mean,
It's a possibility. Not saying now, not saying next year.
I was saying, I think the base is important, right? So if you stretch that out, you look at cities like Austin, it's really cool what they're building there.
Yes.
It's a really cool stadium. It's a really cool fan base in terms of amount of people and the interest that they have. And the sponsors and kind of some of the decisions they've made just artistically are great. But the culture has yet to be seen, right?
Mm-hmm.
We still have to see them go in post-pandemic into a stadium and play and try and create a culture out of vapor, which is really where they came from. Like, I've been to Austin. I love Austin. I actually know the city pretty well, and know people there who actually live there right now. And actually, I think 1 or 2 are season ticket holders. But yeah, it's really just going to be a question of and none of them know. Like, it's kind of us last year. It's like, what is this going to look like? What is it?
Mm-hmm.
But it's on a such bigger scale that I fear the fragmentation, right? It almost is impossible to not become fragmented or have different ideas. And what's been great about this is being smaller and building in such a way and having several disappointments. You really get a sense of who's here for the final vision of just getting into the stadium and singing and having a supporter section, because really that's what it was about at the end of the day. And and having a bunch of other kind of cultural ideas that we want to put into this, has been the lifeblood of all of that too. So for me, that's been really riding that, as you said.
Yeah, and then something I love about the locals is the way you guys embrace Chavos the Loyal. Honestly, I mean, they came in, and at first I was like, oh man, I hope there's no competition between locals and Chavos. I just love the way you guys opened up your arms and you're like, you know what, you guys want to do your thing. Let's see, why not combine the best of both worlds,
Well, it's breweries here in San Diego, right? So the reason I explained it, I've gone all over the U.S. for my job previously. When I was doing education stuff, I'd fly into a market and talk to salespeople in Denver or whatever, or Boise, whatever city. I honestly forgot sometimes when I was doing it really heavily. Like, you'd be on a plane and you'd be like, yeah, and especially in random Western cities that all the business parks look the same, and you get up in a hotel in a day and you would drive to the place and you're like, this could be one of 5 cities. I don't know. But you would go there and you find out what is unique about this place or what's different, because business parks and other stuff like that can look the same. And so I try to find something unique about there. But when we talked about San Diego, a lot of what would come up is, let's go out for beers and here's our local microbrew and it's pretty good and all that stuff. And you say, yeah, it's San Diego, we're pretty spoiled. People would say, why is San Diego beer a thing, right? Why does it actually exist? And a lot of it has to do with the collaboration. The breweries themselves started in homebrew clubs, either as engineers that were just like, hey, we're messing with brewers beer on the side, and then there's Steve, who's an engineer, our president, who also likes to mess with beer a lot on the side, but usually just providing some dope beers. But yeah, there's just all sorts of beer mindset in terms of not just, hey, let's drink it, but let's create it together. Let's not just hey, I'm going to create a recipe, but maybe you'll bring over the hops. We'll combine hops and we'll make something together. Or with breweries here, the thing was collaborations. I think that's really it's not unique to anywhere, but the amount of collaborations in this city is staggering compared to other markets, just due to the fact, and it's become more normalized elsewhere, I think, because of the fact that the industry here is so friendly with each other. If our brewery's out of this thing, we'll ask them and they'll help us out. And there is animosity. It's just like any family, just like anything else. But with breweries, they're not animosity poorly, but you build up, there's always these little family, kind of squabbles and things happens when you're close and believe a lot of the things really closely together. It's, to me, it's the closest analogy I can build is, all the boats rose in the tide because you had Green Flash and Ballast Point and AleSmith all kind of coming up together in this space and figuring it out and helping each other, as well as all these other different homebrew members that built amazing breweries off the back of Quaff and these different groups that are, just mind hives for beer. That's why it happened. Is people shared and something beautiful came out of it. So for us, it's all about sharing. It's all about sharing is caring, and building each other up is the best way for everybody to win. So for us, it's always giving them space, not saying like, hey, we're gonna, tell you how it has to be, or like, you build through us, but it's more of saying, hey, what can we do to help you? How can we give you space to do that? But how can we also make sure that you're always welcome, and that we're essentially one goal. It's just how do you want to express that, and how do you feel culturally that speaks out of you in a way that feels genuine and that you enjoy. And so even within the locals, if that's expressed in different ways of we've talked about this, having a kind of black run supporters group would be fantastic. That would be something that I've seen a lot of efforts from Forward Madison this year. They're Featherstone's Flamingos, and what they're doing in terms of building a culture there that not only just does things that are active all the time in terms of being proactive in that community and doing things for social justice, but also educating and pulling their supporters group in a direction that's extremely positive. That I would love to see us do, that kind of stuff. And you have to crawl before you can run. But they've been a really great model and are part of the ISC, which Steve was able to talk about on some of our podcasts and did a great job of speaking to, and being our main conduit to, and I'm the backup, I guess, or the secondary, but as our two representatives there. But ISC does a great job of networking us with people like those guys who give us a kind of blueprint on which to look at and say, hey, here's ways that we can be more involved in the spaces and bring people in who are directly connected to these cultural experiences that maybe we don't know about, and build community through that, because certain people need to see themselves and certain people need to see their, not certain people, everyone needs to see that. And I think in terms of certain people might be the right people to carry that forward that are definitely not us. So being open and having the idea of, there's a million ways to do this. We're just doing it the way we know best. And our whole goal is to create space so that you can do it a million ways.
And again, that's kind of like how we felt that this all happened with us too, is the fact that, I mean, we're like little microbreweries in a sense too, a little podcasting network. We have our little groups, and we all have been helping each other, honestly. And there might be some friendly competition here and there, but that's part of the fun too, in a sense.
Yeah.
And
I definitely text Jordan like when we have a guest the same week, or you guys are, I'm like, hey, wait a second, like, or I'll be like to Jesse, like, you giving the guest to everybody? Come on, like, it's like there's definitely that goes on with everybody where it's like, oh, give me somebody nobody else is getting, right? Like, we'll definitely do that kind of stuff, but it's always with love of like, hey, I'm just trying to make the game better for everybody, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're all trying to do it to where there's more interest in all of this stuff, and I listened to all of them, and they all have their own space and lane in terms of voice. And I think that's what's awesome about it, is that you guys will get stuff out of a player that we won't. Same with Fairweather, and same with, Unnamed, and really, and Lance and what he's doing as well. It is a really cool community of people that are pouring into this. And so I thank you guys for just being consistent. That's what I told Tony when you guys first started, was like, you guys just got to keep pumping it out and doing it consistently, and people will keep tuning in and keep building you'll keep figuring it out as you just keep doing it. That's the biggest thing, as I said, in film for me, was just going out, as I said, some of these silly projects that end up on YouTube years later that people pull up are there because you just did it, right? You just went out and said, I'm going to make up some lines about time to Peter, and we're going to incorporate my farts into the sketch. My real those are real.
Those
farts.
are real. No, I knew. By the way, again, people don't know what they're talking about. Drew Steck, YouTube, you'll find it. Apparently, there's also a Christian pastor named Drew Steck. So,
who's named Andrew Stockland, and this is a weird story.
Really?
Just for side, yeah. So if you're searching my name, and you're like, did Drew kill himself and become a pastor?
Oh shit!
That did not happen. So what happened was, I had the handle Drew Steck on most social media, and I like @Drew Stork better. I don't know why. It's an inside joke with some friends, and it's just more fun. Honestly, it's just more of a fun thing. It's like, handles should be fun, I think. And so I gave up Drew Steck, and he claimed it. Wow. Even though his last name isn't fully Steck, it's just like kind of a different way of saying it. And yeah, a few years ago, I like got blown up, didn't get blown up, but like a lot of like notifications, stuff like that. It wasn't people reaching out to me directly. But yeah, at first it was just like, there was some like ats and stuff, and I was like, huh? And then I was like, oh, I see what happened here. It was really depressing, really sad story, but like, yeah, this guy, he's a pastor, I think in Washington or something like that. He's from down here though. So it was slightly confusing because he was from California, moved elsewhere. And so it was like, oh, but yeah, that was odd. I'm not that guy, thankfully. I'm this guy. I preach the word of soccer only. pretty
Facts.
And
much. I have my own beliefs, but soccer is the one I preach out the loudest for sure.
definitely, but you were awful quiet as you had to run to a meeting, and instead of trying to take shots at me last time we saw each other, nobody in Bridge Barcata has scored on me other than Paul. To this day, nobody has scored.
I'll score on you.
You're not part of it. But even then,
I had to go pick up Valentine's Day gifts for my wife, if you should know. But that was the meeting I had to run to, was picking those up at
Smart man.
Nordstrom's while it opened, and
You
then
hear
be
that?
able to go home and then act like I didn't do anything. But the problem is my window was vastly closing to where the later I went, the worse it was going to be. So that's, that's why I had to skedaddle. It was also because I saw you putting on the gloves, and I'm like, I just got to get out of here.
Yeah.
But I do want to score on you. So we're going to have to make that happen.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm definitely down for you to try to score. It's not going to happen. As you may have heard, I am the 5th string goalkeeper for the San Diego Sockers. Also part of the reason why I decided
Making Austin Guerrero sweat. I don't know.
Yeah,
That's what I heard.
exactly. Like
That's what I took away.
it's definitely at a 200 pounds less grasp away from me. It's the dream.
You challenged Corey.
I did challenge. Did you see that, Drew?
I did not, but he seems up for it. He seems up for anything.
He seemed up for anything, and he's fantastic. Let's see if
He's great. It's gonna be so much fun to play with this year in terms of just kind of post games and all that kind of stuff. In terms of goal celebrations, I'm sure he's gonna be quite the character. But yeah, you got to think his shots coming in he's got a rocket leg too. Like his shots are hard. So at a short distance too. But are you going to go full field, or are you going to go futsal court with him? I think you should go futsal court with him.
I mean, I told him I'm going to ride the lightning. So this is the video of him packing up his his essentials.
Almost done packing, just one more thing left. And then we're off.
Top bins.
There you go.
All right.
This is gonna be my favorite player.
And then who was it? So Weston, our buddy Weston from San Diego Loyal. Shout out Wes. Get your season tickets with him, by the way.
Good guy.
Yeah.
We paid our season tickets off with him.
Fly Eagles fly.
Said Fly Eagles Fly. Obviously, he's wearing an Eagles hat. Corey, and then
Jerry.
your buddy Jerry, out of nowhere, out of the top of the third rope with an atomic elbow, Macho Man style. You probably could have blocked that shot. Obviously, stoking my ego, and I just said I'll bet him a Dr. Pepper and a smoothie that I can block 1 out of 5 shots from him. And of course, Corey said, "I'll take it." And that's
And you piss yourself.
and I pissed myself. And Carl, also from Barcata, said, "Hey, are you gonna stop one, or is it like out of 5 shots, PKs, half strength? No, I'm gonna ride the lightning. I want it all.
Regular goal, or if, like you said, futsal goal.
I mean, just for him, I'll make it regular goal. You know,
shit.
Just
Oh wow.
just to make it easier for him, bigger target. You know, he scored into a U-Haul, and a U-Haul is like 2.5
I'd be
meters
willing
tall.
to bet my whole paycheck that he scores 5 out of 5.
Yeah, if it's a PK, I actually think if you put him at the top of the arc, he actually might even do better than 5. They might do better than PKs, because PKs at that short range, you have that closing speed that I've seen. You know, I think that I give him the advantage if you go a little further.
I don't
out.
think we're
But
too
if
confident
you
for
stay
you.
close, I think you could find your angles. I'm
Yeah.
gonna say you can get that one.
Wow.
I'm just a believer in a PK
Yeah.
stop. I just
Yeah.
think that it's like Nick Romando was not the most svelte dude, but dude could stop a penalty like nobody's business. That's what I'm saying.
Thing
It's
is-
all about mental preparedness and reaction time.
You said stop. If he misses, that's not you stopping it.
No, that's the pressure. My pressure on him.
No.
My pressure on a professional soccer
come on.
player.
Oh, okay.
Like, no, I mean that's
No, if he like
that's
misses
my,
wide right, that's
my
not
presence.
you stopping. You said you would stop.
My presence stopped that goal from going in because he thought he needed to bury it deep in the corner down where I wouldn't be able to reach it. So just him knowing that in the back of the mind of like, hey, he's actually going to be able to reach that. And it'll probably be like the
I'll
third or
score
fourth,
5
the
PKs
first
out
one.
of 5 on you.
You have not scored 5 PKs
In a regular
on you.
goal, I will score 5 out of 5.
No.
Yes, I would.
Anyway, Drew, I've seen Drew. I believe Drew can slot a couple.
I believe Drew can
I think I
score
can go.
five
I
on
can
you.
give 1 or 2. Yeah. I got my moments. The problem is from a spot, I'm way worse. I'm almost better like Jazz. You know, like just being in it, like playing, like
that's
in
right.
game. Like I'm a terrible practice guy, and I'm like honestly, Paul loves doing shot kicks and like top ends and stuff. It's like any of that technical stuff, I'm gonna be terrible at. I am a just pure performer in that sense. So I'm like probably would never get picked in Landon's 11 because I do not practice well. That's just a pure fact.
So
but I practice best when no one else is around, all by myself, and then I'll hit the top corner every single time, 5 out of 5.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Same
The
here.
second, I wouldn't say it's pressure. It's just more so like it's like you body mechanic stuff. I think it's honestly golf, any sport I play. The less I think about it, and the more I practice, just kind of the mechanics a little bit. Keep those fresh and stay physically well. Like that's usually where I'm in my sweet spot, as opposed to thinking it too much. It's usually just overthinking it.
Yeah.
I just usually say you got to dance like everybody's watching, and that's just how you got to do it. Everybody's watching.
Is that your motto?
Yeah, that's definitely the motto. Just like at all times, it's always a performance. Fellow performers. I also am a thespian Drew troop 1797 here at Sweetwater High School. The last play.
I know my own.
Been around, absolutely.
Smell it.
The last one was the Scottish play. Was cast as Seaton and Donald Bain. Very deep cut in Shakespearean theater.
I performed too, but I
In
performed
what?
guitar. I was in a guitar group.
In a mariachi.
No, it was actually an actual
okay.
like a 50-something guitar group in Chula Vista High School.
50-something guitars.
Yep.
That sounds like a waste of
Almost
resources.
intimidating. It sounds like an army of guitars. Guitar me.
Just go on YouTube. Go Chula Vista High School House of Guitars.
House of Guitars.
Hog. Our logo was a hog. I'm not playing.
no.
I'm not playing.
I mean,
Was it We Strum Together?
Yeah, no. Check it out. It's actually pretty cool what we did. It'd be something like maybe like 50 guitars and like 4 bass players.
That's pretty cool.
all right. Well,
It's
different.
you
We'll
don't
have to
really
check
see
this
that anywhere. So
how did we get here?
good times.
I don't know.
I
50, it's like
really-
50
I-
feral hogs, 50 guitars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fun. Yikes.
I showed
But
you?
again, no, you haven't.
Oh,
But
wow.
I think we're
Yeah.
good. But yeah. So also one of the things that's most exciting coming into this loyal season is what's coming out of the loyal accounts, because as everybody here is very well aware, there's a lot of hardworking people that go behind the scenes. Again, at the tryouts, we had a chance to pretty much see everybody that's involved in the front office. Shannon was there. You had Jesse. Y'all are gonna have Elizabeth Rivas, who is just amazing behind the scenes. The day of, just up and down. It's gonna be great.
Listeners now look for the stream because it'll be within hours, maybe. Probably it's tomorrow/tonight when you're listening to this. Probably.
I like it. But again, it's a lot of the people that are creating. There's so many creative people, and not just creative people. There's people that are multifaceted and great at everything that they do. Example, again, shout out to the Loyals Locals podcast. You guys had Ryan on one of your marathons. And those, and that guy's just,
Jesse was smart. He dropped off.
yeah, he was actually telling us like, I thought, he was going to say like, we're going to go ahead and sign off. All right, we'll go ahead and talk a little bit. And then, I mean, I don't know how I hung on to the end too. I was just like, you know what, at this point, out of respect for Ryan,
You're just in.
you just got to stay in. But yeah, I mean, that's
He was there. He was telling great stories too. So you're like, I gotta hang out. We gotta keep hanging out. And it was almost like we're all looking at each other like a game of chicken. Like none of us can leave, right? None of us can leave. Yeah, we can't leave. First to leave.
And then something else though that we have to very much fix is the fact that Jesse and Ryan are still non-believers of San Diego's taco scene. They're still stuck in some Fresno taco truck like fantasy. I don't know what that's all about. I don't get it. And so we need to fix that collectively. We'll have another loyal roundtable with all the local podcasts and just tell them to go.
Top 10
I think
taco
everybody bring
places.
tacos. Yeah, just bring the tacos.
Oh,
I like
Yeah,
that.
everybody goes and they bring. It's like a taco potluck. Taco. Yeah, I can't make that word work. But the taco potluck.
I'm gonna cheat and then I'm gonna go to TJ and bring tacos from TJ.
But you have to transport them, so you got to get like one of those like Pizza Hut bags, like the old '90s ones that kept it actually hotter or whatever.
Nice. Yep.
Just kidding. I don't know. But yeah, I feel like they did, right? Like I feel like the new bags, like whenever you get pizza delivered, it's never as warm as it was in the 90s.
Yeah.
Like, or the 2000s. Like, I feel like pizza used to be warm. This is an old man thing. I'm going to stand up on that
No, yeah.
soapbox for a minute. But, like, yeah, you need to transport the tacos properly, too, for the consumption. Because part of it's just getting them fresh.
Yes.
You know, especially
Yeah,
in TJ.
exactly.
Get them right there, putting them right in your mouth, having the meat be meat to mouth.
Nice.
You know,
Yep.
you know, that's a meme for you kids. But yeah, there's a
Meat to
the
mouth.
meat to mouth.
Sounds like a
ratio
punk
in
band,
terms of
too.
Which way do you tilt your
flavor,
head?
Hotness, the amount of cool. I think it's usually, you know, they make it the way they want you to eat it. In most cases, I've found. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Meat
It's not
to
a food
mouth.
to be transported. So that's also the issue I think with tacos is like getting that, you know, direct thing. And I think it's hard to sample this last year. It just was hard to go, you know, direct up and get that experience a lot of places. So we will convert them slowly but surely.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, their content though is top notch. I'll
Dope.
give them that. If it's fueled by Fresno tacos, so be it. But their content that's coming out of the official loyal account has been outstanding. We have Danny Miller joining from the Timbers. Good experience from the MLS. He's so excited, man. Like he's so pumped to just get out there and even.
We haven't seen the best of him at all yet. 'Cause,
Yeah, they haven't let him. They
yeah,
told him like we
he's
have
like,
the reins on him.
Take it easy this
Oh, yeah.
week. Get to know names. Once they unleash him, we're gonna start seeing some great stuff.
And even then, like right now, the Morgan Hackworth stuff up
Yeah.
in I was gonna say Baja, up in NorCal,
Big Sur?
yeah.
It was kind of Central Cal, yeah.
That's
was a
all
great video.
outstanding, yeah.
I mean, did you?
But that was incredible.
Yeah.
And they're kind of working with different people again, collaborating, pulling in different people, different filmmakers, you know, and telling different stories. And I think there was a couple of those different videos they said are going to be done by different people who aren't just Ryan or Jesse, right, or their group. It's going to be, you know, other artists as well, and they're
Yeah.
looking
Nice.
to incorporate other artists throughout different phases for different designs, right? They have Travis on call, obviously, to do great stuff like the Leal, you know, kind of promotion, which I personally want to see more of with
Yeah.
the name. I've always pushed for that to say like, hey, and I always thought it should be LSD, but that's just me. So, because if it was Leal, it'd be Leal San Diego.
Yeah, no, yeah, that makes actually perfect sense. That's
so
not
LSD.
bad.
So
Let's
anyway,
push
so
that
when
for
we
that.
do Leal night, it's got to be back. I'm just saying. It'll also be Grateful Dead night. We'll just make it all one night.
Oh,
It'll work.
beautiful.
We'll
Yeah.
pull in Bill Walton, and it'll just be a mash of, you know, all the different stuff, right?
Catered by Ben and Jerry's with Cherry Garcias everywhere. I mean, it's like
And
right.
the taco truck lineup we're talking about, pulling all the taco. Yeah. Boom. Everybody wins. This is how we convert them, guys.
Who cares
I think we
about-
got it.
who cares
we
about
drop
soccer
some
at this
LSD into
point?
their cups. We feed them a bunch of tacos, and then they watch a soccer match and they feel transcended.
Nice.
Everybody becomes better. I think USD would be very upset at us. Everybody.
They have two of the letters in their name. I don't know. What
Very
I'm saying.
true. And it's almost inviting you like SD, USD, come on in.
ULSD?
Yeah.
LSD.
I don't think we're ever
I'm not
gonna be.
promoting that, kids.
I know. I was gonna say like, I think we're ever gonna be allowed back. But
I'm
yeah,
not. No, I don't even know where you can get that. Probably in a lab, right?
yeah.
Get what?
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not no narc. But thank you, sir. Outside garage. There's my
delivery.
LSD. But no, again, I can't wait for all these collaborations to happen. I know that there's Landon talking with the Chicano Federation or Foundation Federation here in San Diego, and getting everybody involved. One thing that I will say that we were discussing when we went up to the tryouts up in Oceanside, I can throw a rock to Tijuana. That's how close I am. So it's the farthest north that I can go in San Diego County. But going up there was a field with a shitload of fields, like full size soccer
Yeah.
fields, and I love that little pitch in Vallalindo Park. But we're singing the praises of us receiving here in the South Bay a cement mini court, a futsal court, which is fantastic. It's great.
Painted over a basketball court, by the way. It wasn't a ton of work, guys. So we can do this everywhere. Yeah.
Exactly. But again, why can't we have a mega complex with 20 soccer fields? I'm not even asking for 20 at this point. I'm asking for like 1 or 2 here in the South Bay. I think those are some steps that, hopefully start getting traction, because loyal, and thanks to all the social and supporter groups that have a good name, that have put a good word and represent the city and team well, that people are paying attention, saying, hey, you know what, this is a really good idea. Get the kids, off the streets and onto the soccer field, and if that's even a converted basketball field, let that be. But let's get some stuff here in the South Bay too.
Absolutely.
I think it's it's ubiquity, right? Like it's having it everywhere, right? It's having it, like Loyal said they want to build 20. I think they said 20 and 20 or whatever is their kind of vision, and so I don't know what that timeline looks like, but the goal would be, I think over the next 5-10 years to get 20 courts built through them. And obviously Bridge Barcata and our kind of co-op there has been closely in talks to say, hey, here's areas we think are ripe for what we're looking for, and obviously even getting a permanent court at somewhere like Barrio Logan, separate from the basketball courts, would be pretty amazing, right? So like that's what we're talking about. It does take that specifically. To me, especially if you're going to put it in Chicano Park, takes a discussion, takes that it's not a we're going to do this. It's let's start having a relationship. Let's have Landon go speak to the group. Let's start having personal, individual relationships that turn into a project, as opposed to putting a project and thrusting relationships into it. So that's what this club has always prioritized, and I think done a really great job of and modeled for not just with their ambitions of creating more soccer in the city, but also for the community at large. So Bridge Barcata, as I was saying, we're pretty involved in not just that, but also trying to see if there's other things we can do to bring that idea, as you said, of having more complexes and things like that are available to people specifically for free. I think is our big thing. We just really want it to be accessible, because you've got stuff like one built at a Boys and Girls Club in Claremont, which is a beautiful court, looks great. We can't get to it because it's their club, it's their court.
Yeah.
Right off the street. They could make it accessible, but it's their court, it's their land. They can do what they want with it. But it's a bummer that that's the only court north of a certain area. So, or north of, I think the probably the 8 kind of area. If you take that out to Wells Park in El Cajon. There's another court out there as well, which is nice. But those are the first two that Target kind of brought in, as you said, just built these kind of over existing courts, and they look nice and they're great. But for me, my dream would be with Bridge Barcata, selfishly, and we've all talked about this kind of internally, and we always say, like, it's always just about bringing people in, and we're never going to try and make it bigger than what it is. But for all of us, I think we have this dream that it could be some sort of center like you're talking about, where it is 5, 6, 7 courts. Maybe one's like light grass, one's, whatever. You have a mini court or a tiny court that's just like a tiny baby, 2 to 3 person court, something like that. Like a almost futsal, or not futsal, foosball type of like ping pong. Active, like human ping pong, or human ping pong. That would actually be interesting, right?
That would be, yeah.
Who's the ball? But yeah, having all these different opportunities and levels for people to play, and also be a community center and that kind of stuff. I think that's a really not far off concept that a lot of people have an interest in, whether it's us as Barcata or just anybody we've been connected to who comes into the circle. And I've talked through, is like, yeah, man, that would be so cool to have somewhere either around downtown, in the South Bay specifically, I think has always been a shout. And then just really somewhere central, I think, that's available for all of us to be able to be at. That, I've always said, like, a stadium would be like a church. That would be kind of a different type of chapel, if you will, to continue with that analogy. But some place we can all come, like a watering hole, I think, actually more so in that way, like a place that refreshes us and makes us feel invigorated, but also as a sense of community. I think that's really what we're looking for, and what it can do is as we're all playing there, feels like a place that we transform that court into our dreams, right? It's like, here's me making this goal or making this pass, just like what I was watching this morning on EPL, if we're doing it on a Saturday or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the kind of thing that I think, even at 30 something, when I'm never going to play probably competitively again, it gives you that juice to make you understand why you fell in love with it in the first place. That it isn't just, I like to say it's like playing on a playground when we play Barcata, because it really is. You just feel like kids again, right? In that way. So that's what I love about it, for sure.
It just makes you feel like a kid again, man. Because I mean, again, anywhere you want to play. Like for me here in Chula Vista, for me and my friends, since we're in middle school up to like maybe a couple years ago, like now that everyone has jobs, everyone's busy. We had this thing we called a Feaster at 8, and we would go to Feaster Elementary and we would go to the parking lot. The fence was the gate was always open because it's a public park, and we would play in the parking lot and we'd have the retas 5-on-5. There'd be like 20 people that show up, 5-on-5 people waiting. 2 goals, you win. If not, it goes up to 3, and it's just so much fun. We'd be there from 8 to like 11 p.m. midnight until our parents start calling us. Yeah. So again, it makes you feel like a kid. You always want to play. You always want to have that competitiveness. You always want to score.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if you can't do it on a big field, because I mean, I was playing on a big field and finding 22 people to play 11-on-11 is always more difficult.
It's so hard.
5-on-5 and you have 15 people. That's 3 teams already, or even 3-on-3, 4-on-4. It's so much fun always when you have retas. It's just great.
Oh yeah, it's great, and then you can also like build that way too. It's Paul and I found when we tried to go, we came up north here, up by us, further up to 15, and played in Forest Ranch and started playing there when they had kind of the lights on. One night we found out, hey, the lights are on. Nobody plays here after they have like hockey open skate, so let's just start bringing goals and see if people show up. And the community came out, but there definitely is that first like game or two where you'll show up, and we tried doing it at another park, and it's like the 2 of us and no one comes.
Yeah.
And we're just standing there like, or a third person comes, which is the weirdest, where it's just us 2 and this third guy who shows up, right? Like, and that's happened multiple times.
Yeah.
But what you have to do is like look for people walking by and being like, and they like might be looking and be like, do you want to come play? And just like inviting them, off the street or walking by and peeping and just being like, what's going on over here? And that's how you get people. We had basketball guys I think we were playing with one time in Carmel Mountain. We're like, hey, just come over and play. And they're like, okay. They were like kind of into it, kind of half not, but they're like, yeah, it's something different, whatever. And maybe that sparked a bug for them a little bit, right? Or even then, it's just a fun change up to whatever your normal is, and it doesn't feel like you have to be super, finite with your skills and your cardio, and everything has to be on point. Even indoor, it can be, some more cardio in some sense of that quick sprints back and forth, right? Running, one way down and one way back, versus what I love about the short court and about kind of the street game we've built is that you can really play even if you've come off an injury. It's one of the best ways to come back in, even though it is concrete, unless you do have concerns there with, ankles and knees and stuff. You're not really going to ground, so you're not going to have those kind of injuries, and all that stuff makes it a lot easier to just play your game and kind of get your fundamentals back under you, and the speed of which is nice, and we don't push you too much. So it's that's what I really love about it, is that sense of, as you said, just not having to feel like it's you have to have everything in a row to play outdoor correctly, which it really is. That's part of why it's a beautiful game. It's a dance. It's having everything set up, but that short court can be just as interesting and just as fun and way more approachable to a lot of people.
My favorite thing is just the different type of players that you always have. You always have the chonchito that was skinny before and is still good, or the cocky shit talker that's still good, and you're like, man, I want to really beat this guy. And then you have the quiet guy that's probably the best one on the field or on the court, and then you have the Tonys.
Look at that. That hurt. That straight up fucking hurt.
That was to say, you don't go to ground, but Tony will go to ground.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, I have to. I cannot be embarrassed in such a way.
Nobody knows this, but the day after I hung out with him, he's like, I'm fucking dead, bro.
Yeah.
He was done. He was done for sure.
Well, if you haven't done it in a while too, like that's why I said, like we were playing with Karina and a couple other people that day, and it was wet on the court.
Yes.
And I was trying not to walk, so it was definitely like half speed because you're trying to like go through the water or around the water. But even then, like you're trying not to slip. I think she slipped at one point, but it's like I almost fell a couple times, and you catch yourself. But the next day, just because of that and that tension that you put in your legs while you're trying to do that, it's hard to. Your ankles are just like, no, thank you, no mas.
I think we need to start talking though about Barcata /local /loyal /shoot balls in the mic team to play friendly against Loyal. Maybe their backups. Maybe a small sided affair.
5-on-5.
I'm down for a 5-on-5. I'm down to embarrass
I
five
think
of
that's the
loyal
fairest way
players.
to do it.
Yeah.
I think
No.
I was just saying on an open field it would just be.
Oh.
I said this in our. I'm not to kind of pull things out of the Discord, but I will say it would be very one-sided. It would
Oh,
be very
absolutely.
I know.
one-sided.
Landon would be disappointed. Like, why didn't we sign all these guys? Why isn't Tony on our side? We would
It
just
be-
destroy the
It would be
guys.
too tough. So I think short court makes it fair for both sides.
I call being coach.
Definitely. Yeah, just our deep talent. I will say, like on an open field, I would love to see what somebody like Daryl could get up to because he's, still just got that just great vision, and I think could still cross a few balls in. He can maybe laugh at this and be like, "That's silly, Drew." But I would love to see a few of our Barcata guys who I've never played with on an open field out there for sure. But I agree. I think short court we could definitely make that happen. They've been honestly nudging us a little bit, like, "Hey, what about this?" So I think we're gonna have to nudge back. I say after this podcast, let's go.
You got to tell him, hey, man, 1904 came out once. I mean, what's up with Loyal? Loyal got to come out.
What's up with that? They actually came out a few times.
Landon came out, but
Been
the whole
around a
team
lot.
said to come out.
We've had Landon. We've had Ricardo a couple times, but the squad's never come out. What's up with that?
You got to have Corey over here.
Just Corey just lays.
Corey was down. We asked him. We had Corey right away. He was like, "I'm in."
Yeah.
Go.
He would laser the boot into a child's face, though.
He'll
Like, he was
probably
just-
be even more down. Now that you called him out, he'll be
We
more
haven't had
down.
a concussion yet, thank God. But
good.
yeah, I just think that he, it's just a force of nature. I don't know if you could corral him to a court.
No concussions, just a bunch of broken ankles.
Yes.
and dreams.
Dreams.
Dreams for sure.
Bunch of
every
nutmegs.
time that somebody puts it through my legs because they're just too big. I'm a Spider-Man, and yeah, Tony saw it. Like it's impressive when I can trap a ball, but for every one of those, there's like 2 or 3 that go through my legs.
I strategically got there late just so everybody would be tired. I don't think I've ever admitted that. So, yeah. So I was
had you gotten there early.
I was still the most
He would
tired.
have had to take shots on you, man.
No, it's fine. He was still had to be a good husband. Did you hear that? I think that's the most important piece of this podcast. Gifts. Plural.
Gifts.
Valentine's plurality of gifts. What's the best gift that you've
You
received?
can't go. Well, then if one's disappointing, then the other one's cancel it out, right? So
Well,
if you're just
see-
like, hey, I got you this hat, and you pin all your hopes on the hat. The earrings, at least, maybe they hate the earrings, but they love the hat. So you just don't know. You just gotta spread it out.
And then if just hey, it's okay. It's okay, man. You can give me gifts.
Sure,
It's okay.
sure.
But no, not like that's again everything that we're talking about right now. Everything is something that we've come across in the past year, and I feel like we're saying like it's been like 10 Smurfs years at this point, but there's just so many friendships. There's so many connections that we forged that it seems like it's been here forever and for a while. Something that also seems like it's been there for a while, and to pivot a little bit, is the bad form for Tottenham Hotspurs, except for recently.
Who's a Tottenham fan? I
Who?
don't know what you're talking about.
Who?
There. I don't-
My team's in second place. I don't know about you guys.
I mean, my team is still in the Champions League.
No, you're not. You're in fifth.
You're not up
No,
there anymore.
we're in the Champions League tournament.
Oh, okay, my bad.
Fuck, you're talking about. But
Hey, we're in the Europa League. We have a chance of winning the Europa League.
so are they.
Yeah.
I'd take Mourinho in a cage fight over Chelsea in the Europa League. We'll see what it comes down to, but I do think it's going to come down to Spurs, Arsenal, and who knows what the hell will happen in the Europa League. But I think we're on like a collision course for that to happen.
You think Milan's
We'll
gonna be
see.
Man U?
There's one of two ways this goes. Mourinho either wins both the Europa League and the League Cup and proves everyone wrong,
No.
which seems very unlikely at this point.
Yeah.
That's like even as a Tottenham fan, where you have to like be hopeful because otherwise, what do you have? It's less than like a 1% possibility because you're playing City in the League Cup, and then the road to get to the Europa League final and win it with this squad isn't impossible. But you're talking about a lot of things going right and essentially just giving up on the league.
I think City has a high
Which I
chance
don't
of
think
winning
he'll
the
do.
treble.
So that's my thing is like if Mourinho was able to actually bury his pride enough to just kill the league and finish like 8th or 9th and not care, it would be a possibility. So I think it's just going to be like a middling thing. We'll make it to the semifinal again in Europa League and bow out. It'll be sad, and we'll lose the League Cup by like a goal. It'll be like 2-1 at the end, and it'll be depressing. And then he'll still get back for another window and be here another year. and it'll be
Do you want
whatever.
him?
Maybe
Do you
we'll
want
be better.
him there
Maybe
for
we'll
another
be
year?
better. Maybe we won't. But we will be the first team to never finish higher than second place his second year in charge, and possibly not win a cup. I believe in both those things. So, should we actually accomplish one of those things in terms of winning a cup, I would be highly surprised. Or
What did
finishing
you
in the top 5.
What did you think about Bale's performance yesterday?
That's why his jersey's there. He's the only guy who's not on my crap list right now. Pretty much because he is unlocking a different part of his game that was coming on at the later stages, and you would see flashes of it in Madrid. But the problem is he was just never consistent enough and in and out of the squad, and that's due to personal, his own head as much as anything else. Honestly, it's on him. But watching him play before in that number 3 shirt was a very, very different player. He was, almost skill over brains in some ways, where he just did things that I think he amazed himself sometimes. Versus now he knows almost exactly what he's trying to do. And so it's impressive to watch where he puts the pieces together and does it. But I think it took him a while at Tottenham to read the players, to get to know how they're going to move on the field. I do think there was also a sense of just being in a bad routine. I think that he probably came to Spurs still under his like golf, Wales, whatever kind of like thing. And it seemed like he had fun hanging out with Doherty and some of his Welsh friends at Spurs. But like at the end of the day, you're going to have to, turn it around and, you're going to have to do on the pitch what people think Gareth Bale should do. And so he's been doing that the last few games. Can he do it through the end of the season? We'll see. I think that would go back to repairing his reputation, not only for Spurs, but I think internationally, if he was. And he's got kind of some contract stuff coming up at the end of the year. They can keep him. We'll see what happens there. Obviously, Madrid's not going to take him back, so they'll probably just sell him to China or whatever they were going to do in the first place before Spurs stepped in. And we're like, here's some money to not do that. And they're like, okay.
Maybe he'll become a pro golfer. You never know.
You never know. Maybe he'll join Tom Brady and become a pro golfer after he's a pro a different sport, just to be obnoxious or something. But I think that he could restore his career with Tottenham if he does keep playing like this. And I think he can physically. It's just a question, because it's not anything he's doing that's like physically something he couldn't do for another 2-3 years. It's just reading the game right and putting in the effort and making the runs that he's been making, where he just tracks back or he goes after play. I'm like, is that Bale running there? Like your eyes almost are like, wow, he's doing that. And that's the kind of stuff where you can see mentally it's clicking differently. So that gives you hope more than anything else. Is even if all the stuff I said pessimistically happens in the case of nothing really panning out of this season that's worthwhile besides maybe another Europa League place, that would be a beneficial, where you could still end the season maybe in 6th or 7th, maybe 6th. I'd say 7th would be hard to swallow, but Bale looking really good and feeling like, okay, next year we might have the pieces. And 2020 was just a weird year, and Mourinho and this squad and Spurs, we are we're going to break you. We will bring you down to our level, which is kind of what I love.
I'm sorry, but I wish Tottenham could be better than they are. I think Son needs to leave. He's too good for your club. He's too good for your club, honestly. Not to be disrespectful.
That was very disrespectful.
Hey, I've heard worse things about Manchester United, man. We've gone through a dark path.
You guys
want
to buy Son? Give us the 120 million.
Fuck no, I don't want Son to go to Man U. We'll ruin his fucking career. I'm sorry, Man U ruins his career. I see him at Barca. Barca needs him. Barca needs a solid left wing, and I think he would fit that style. And because I would love for Barcelona to be able to not go through a dark path like the way they're heading, but. Who knows? I mean, if Son's happy at Tottenham, because it looks like he's really happy there, then go for it, But Kane might leave as well. I don't know.
Kane's tricky. Kane wants to be there his whole career. He wants to be a one-player team player, and so he's interesting because he could go he could have his choice of teams. He could go to United tomorrow if he's like, hey, I want to be a British champion, or City, or anywhere, honestly. Any team would take him. It's just a question of whether or not he, wants to go. I think Madrid is the obvious move. I think it'd be cool if someone like Barca wants to come in for him. It's more realistic now than it used to be. I actually think PSG would be more likely, honestly, just because of the Pochettino thing. Not that they were particularly close at all. but it's more so teams that just have a boatload of money they could throw at somebody with Kane's valuation, which makes him, I think, less likely to move versus. And you could still get another 2-3 peak years out of Kane versus Son is peak value. He may still give you some peak amazing years, and I think I would love to see him, at the Camp Nou. But he would be the more likely player to sell. And actually, on Spurs podcast lately, that's been a topic of conversation. Is going at the end of the year, looking at some things you might want to change out. Would you possibly, now with Bale is firing well and you keep him, maybe move on Son, and then you create some more space for your other wingers like Bergwijn, who's coming up, as a younger player, and you want to give him more minutes to develop himself, or getting Bale out there in a more consistent kind of forward fashion, if it's working. But I will say there's been a couple players that are key to possibly linking some of these other players back in, which is Giovanni Lo Celso, who we have under contract for a few more years, who I think also makes it a little easier to move on Son than it would be to Kane. And so that's where that seems more likely, but either one could. I mean, you could see massive shakeups. I think with Mourinho, again, it's less likely that he would move Kane instead of Son. So if he stays, I think it's very likely. If he goes and it all blows up, like, Kane could just be like, hey, I'm done. Like, I tried. But to me, it seems like he wants to break Shearer's record. He wants to do it all at Spurs, and he wants to be there his whole career, for better or worse. God love him. I don't know why. It's because he grew up in Spurs and has loved it his whole life. But
no, I respect that. I really do.
Yeah, you can't ask for more. I mean, you really can't. I mean, it's something where I've watched it with having family in Wisconsin and kind of having an eye on the Packers a little bit, and it's something you see with Rodgers where you're like, is he going to move? Is he going to leave? And it's like, I think he just likes that situation. Like, whatever it is there, he likes Green Bay. He likes the whole deal. He likes being the Pope of Wisconsin, which is what you get to be as the Green Bay quarterback. Like, you literally run a whole state. He has more power than the governor. Like, if he said wear a mask tomorrow, like, it'd be like, everybody's wearing a mask. Or at least then, like, it goes further than any elected official for sure. And Brett Favre was that way when he was there too. Favre obviously just wanted to keep playing, and maybe you'll see that from Rodgers later in his career. But and same with Kane. Kane has said stuff like he wants to become an NFL kicker.
Sure.
So it's like, I don't know.
More
maybe
money,
he
man.
retires at like 32 and like takes a run at it in the NFL. I don't know. So like he's an interesting character, but yeah, I think Son is the more likely move, and just overall the team is just kind of rides as far as Kane rides. And if he goes, I think it'll be a very interesting number of years. Spurs have an amazing amount of youth coming up in the next few years, who are 16 to 18. And so that will replenish a lot of this. And so you kind of have to pick who's going to get replenished and who's going to ride it out. And I think it's more likely with the aging squad that you see somebody like that who's at a little more peak value. And then I don't see any other big names except for maybe defensive. I don't see you moving on Toby, but you might move on to Davinson Sanchez.
Yeah, Sanchez sucks
know.
ass.
Eric Dyer. Yeah, you might see them move out.
Yeah. I mean, as a former kicker myself, I can tell you any soccer player could probably become a kicker. Any pro soccer player, especially goalkeepers. It's just little tweaks that you would have to do. What?
Oh, I was a goalkeeper.
You over here, you're like, I'm a great goalkeeper.
Sounds like the Tony field goal kick challenge is what I'm hearing.
I would destroy Tony at a field goal challenge. Like, he knows it.
I'll give him
knows
that.
it, yeah.
I'll give him that. It's the least athletic position on a football field. I'll destroy him at anything else, even though I've never played football. So we'll have. We should have a combine.
I think it's more mental than most other jobs in sports, though. I think, like closers.
Yeah.
I think it's even more mental than being a closer, which is the crazy part. Like, that's what's crazy about being a kicker is not just the mechanics, but like, the actual like mental aspect of football being as insane as it is. And then like, hey, you're the guy who has to go out and make sure that all of that effort and like blood and like broken bones was worth it.
Trust me, you don't get hit normally as a kicker, but when you get fucking hit, like actually cracked, it makes you realize that football is maybe not your sport.
Yeah.
Dude, it fucking hurt when I got cracked in a fucking kickoff. Like,
you break a collarbone or
both my legs were up in the air and I landed like on my shoulders.
Like the
hurt.
Titanic sank.
Yeah, like I'm not even playing, dude. My dad, I don't know if my dad has a picture or a video of it, but I'll ask him.
I need that.
Because that shit hurt. Like, I got blindsided, feet were up in the air. I remember they scored the touchdown. I was like flipping off the field. I was like, hey, coach, I'm done. Take me out.
So who wins the title first? Spurs, Loyal, or the San Diego Padres?
Oof.
Ooh. Odds in Vegas say the Padres.
Yeah.
For sure.
They would also probably say Loyal over Spurs right now.
Yeah.
So I would say more likely, just because Spurs are like the team that was here previously, and honestly, the Padres to some extent are fighting history. Loyal seems more like feels more tangibly likely. Like I could see them doing it this season almost easier than I could see the Padres doing it, even though the Padres are stacked and have this great season in front of them. You can also see 7 ways that they, tragically lose to the Dodgers in a game 7 in the NLCS or something like that, right? Like there's ways, or however it pans out in the NLDS, like there is ways that this falls apart for them, or like somebody gets injured, or like what happened last year with their starting pitchers, right? Like it's always a possibility with the Padres in a way that Loyal being more fresh and not having the scar tissue we have as fans makes it a little easier. So I don't know. Loyal feels more like, when you asked it, I was like, that I want to say Padres because that feels right.
Mm-hmm.
But the Loyal seems in like my head more like it could happen. Technically, the USL Championship, it would be before the end of the World Series, or no?
Would it be the World Series? Would be in October,
and I think they're pushing it back slightly again this year.
Yeah.
Not as much as they did last year, but slightly. It'll be played in San Diego, so it's
I mean, if at that time we're allowed parades, and if at that time we can do a dual parade, I mean,
I'm thinking, dual parade.
Landon Donovan and Tatis on the same parade float. I mean, that's
tossing apple juice to each other.
Hell yeah, hell yeah.
Tossing the trophy from bus to bus, kind of like Tom Brady did, on boat to boat.
Oh man.
Oh yeah. That'll be. I think. Padres feel like they have the momentum, but I could easily see Loyal with what they're doing here and how Phoenix didn't take a step back, but definitely, I don't think matched the Heat and the upgrades that they've made.
Yeah.
I think that, and we went toe to toe with them, and I think he can now coach them. Between him and Nate and what they're doing here. But yeah, I don't see any reason why it's not 1A, 1B for me. That's the hard part.
I
But
like how you
I'd
left
say whichever
out
championships
Dunham
played first this
out.
year would be my more optimistic. And then again, the scar tissue just makes me see like all the ways it's always gone wrong for the Padres in my head. It's like I can't believe that that's real, even though we talk about it like it's this commonplace thing now. Like,
yeah,
still
no,
not there.
like the rugs are just gonna. It's all gonna be taken out from.
Yeah, we're all gonna be
us.
Chiva when our feet go up in the air, and then we just all fall back, and he'll laugh at us because he's a Dodgers fan.
That's what I. Fuck off. Might as well be a Phoenix fan. Why don't you? Right?
Whoa,
Yeah, right.
Oh, okay.
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Even I will say this: my lady even now has started noticing when people are from out of town or just rude and wearing Dodgers gear. She just assumes they're from LA. She just goes, "Oh yeah, I don't know what's up.
Yeah.
They're just from LA."
Yeah.
So
Hey,
I'm just
man.
saying, Chiva, you're from here. You like to be looped in with those people, or you like to be?
I was
Mario
born in
Lopez?
LA.
don't know
I was
what's going
born in LA. I'm always gonna rep the city I was born in.
on. All right. That's fair.
My
guess.
grandparents lived in LA most of their lives, so I mean, I'm always gonna honor that.
Hey man, you don't need to justify it to anybody. I guess. I mean,
Just saying.
You and Mario Lopez, man. It's
Yeah.
a cool club to be in. You guys can host.
Mario Lopez, Jerry Jimenez. I mean, you guys are part of it.
So, that's all I'm saying, man. Like, you
Jerry's
don't
done a
see me
lot
rooting for
making Dodger
LAFC.
fans more relatable, for sure.
Oh yeah, see, Jerry's all right because Jerry will know, he'll talk his shit, but he'll give his praises, and he does support the Sockers, which is I guess.
You don't see me rooting for LAFC. I'm all about SD Loyal.
Shots fired.
I'm all about SD Loyal. I'm waiting.
I mean,
for
so is he.
I'm waiting for an MLS team here in San Diego. Is he gonna switch up?
What do you think's gonna happen? I mean, I don't think we asked him that. Like,
Yeah,
Open Cup.
I think the decision's already happened somewhat in his head. I think that it would. The ability to bring his boys to games here, I think, means a little bit more. His son's name's Diego, if that lets you know where he stands.
There you go.
Just saying that. Doesn't have a son named Angeles, so.
Or Los.
Los.
Or Los. I don't know. Maybe. Yeah.
You see, I mean, you can't switch up on teams.
Los
man.
does sound like a cool cholo name. Hey, what's up,
Los?
Los?
What's up,
Hey, what's
Los?
up, fool? Hey, what's up, Los?
Hey, this is my boy Los.
Yeah, I like
So
that.
foo.
But yeah, dirty, dirty, dirty LA. Filthy, disgusting. It's
Depends where you go-
polluted,
Depends where you go.
gross.
That's where Trevor Bauer belongs. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
great.
exactly.
So it's a good
Westwood
place
is
to
such
be.
a nice area. I've never been to Westwood.
I have
okay.
been to Didi Reese several times.
Have you not seen La Jolla?
No, it's nice. I love San Diego too. I mean, why can't both cities just like each other?
Because we have superior burritos.
Because we're
Straight up.
intrinsically
Facts.
like created to hate each other. It's Milwaukee and Chicago have a very similar vibe. I think it would make more sense if we had a state line that people would like get it more. I just think people don't understand it because most of the country doesn't know we exist sometimes. Like they do, but they don't. They forget that like we're our own thing. And then since there's no state line, and Orange County exists as this weird buffer gray area that people just loop in with the rest of us, it makes it to where nobody really understands the differences. But I think there's it's a very similar. It just people don't get it
Let's
because there's
just
no state
team
line.
up and
Might as well
be
be a state
against the
line.
Bay Area.
Those.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You could have like 6 states in the state for sure. I think it's more like subdivisions of and even like north of the NorCal, right? Like that's a totally different weird area than even the rest of NorCal. So like
Yeah.
there's this whole
Hella, hecka. Ugh.
we'll have to do that on our geography chat, 2 balls geography chat.
I like that. New segment.
Yeah, in our next podcast.
I love it. But I mean, just circling back, just so we can go ahead and put a nice little bow on this. Drew, it's been a wonderful year of. I mean, the one thing that is wonderful is this exactly the fact that we're
Podcasting.
able to podcast, not just a podcast,
Just hang out.
hang out.
Yeah, and have friends who want to listen, and
Yeah.
and will give us all crap for things that we've said. I'm sure, and incriminated ourselves.
Oh, 100%.
Usually me, mostly. That's why I have several lawyers on retainer as friends.
Yeah, you're gonna have to clean up that YouTube feed.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, it's worse than a Twitter feed. Trust me. There's some stuff in there.
No, 100%. But I did want to ask you, as far as this next year, what is one thing that you, other than obviously being in person for another game, what are you most looking forward to for this game? Maybe on field, off field, something with the locals, something that you guys have planned that you guys can't necessarily talk about, but you can allude to in very, very, very shallow detail. Or what's something that just excites you right now? That one, the one that you're thinking right now, that one. What is it?
I think to me the most exciting there's something we're doing today that will be very fun from whenever you're listening to this, but it won't come out that day. It'll maybe come out a couple days later. That'll be very fun. It's just like a fun little thing. But the big thing that I'm excited for, I think that I was thinking of when I was scratching my beard there, that I thought of as I was like finishing the scratch. But it's mainly something to do with video. As I was saying before, we want to really engage people in a way that makes it feel like they're not just able to create something that they see in the stands that reflects how they want to support this team, but also be able to see that kind of on the internet as well, and create spaces where that feels more tangible and has a, as we talked about here, where we can give words to things that people feel, giving videos, to how people feel, and giving, not just content, but also I like to think of it as more of like a projection of what people, are thinking in the terms of from members themselves and from, locals and fans themselves, but then also just showing the beautiful community we have. We just have really, beautiful people inside and out. Your 2 selves included. I don't know. I've put my face up on the screen most of the time here, but yeah, there you go. That's what we're talking about. But yeah, getting your guys' smiles and faces there, and getting everybody out there. I think that's what this is all about for me. So it's being able to help others, get their stuff out there as much as I like to talk. It's mainly because I like to talk with people and share feelings and ideas. So that is the big thing, is this kind of like secretive but soon to be more foretold video project, and we'll have a few different chances for people to engage and share their ideas, as well as just find different ways of doing that, where last year I think it felt like we all wanted some way to do that. Maybe this can be one of the ways that we do that this year, as well as Discord and all the other stuff that's out there.
And it's great because there's so many avenues in which to engage, not just with the club, but with locals and individually with you guys. You guys are very open, much like the club. And that's, again, another underlying factor between the club, the supporters, the fans, those who aren't fans. It's just everybody's so open and willing to welcome you in that it's undeniable. the movement, the San Diego Loyal, everything that's going on, Barcata, anything with the sport right now is just undeniable, and you can't help but love it, man. You just can't help but love it. Again, we say that when we started this project, we were just going to talk, La Liga, Barcelona, blah, 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 like Europeans, this,
Yeah.
and out of nowhere, like Loyal said, hey, you guys are allowed to come into the kit reveal party as media 2 weeks after you decided to be a podcast. And we got business cards, people that we still talk to right now. Shout out, front office, name dropping, Pete, shout out to Ricardo, shout out to all these people who are very open and not just with their, what they're saying, what they're letting us know, but much like you say, Drew, you like to talk, but there's a lot of people out there who like to listen. And that's what's important, that people are willing to listen. And even if they're not too familiar with what's going on, they're very, very keen to want to learn what this is all about. And there's not a factor, there's nothing that I can point to that say, well, I think this is going to be a deterrent for people. And instead, I think everything points to the same place. And I think it's going to be, whenever people are going to be allowed, and that's going to be Torero Stadium, or in the future, wherever San Diego Loyal is going to decide to play.
Yeah. It'll be a beautiful day when we can all kind of enjoy and be hopefully in the sun. And even if it's the cold and the rain, be there together and in our individual spaces, but together. I think that's the kind of cool thing is it will be so much more joyous again to have fought through and built this in this time. So I'm with you, man. And this is just gonna be so much more fun to go forward with that. And as you were saying, I think the other thing is just the accessibility of this level. Chivo was saying a little bit earlier where MLS would be great, but we're going to lose that when we leave at USL. So just being able to have this time where it's us, it's just us, right?
True.
Like we showed the world last season in some ways what this team's about, but as a community, it's just us, it's just the people here that keep driving and creating this culture. So thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of it. And thank you to, your constant want to bring in other conversations and make them all part of this. But one of the things I found interesting while you're talking is for unnamed, for us, Fairweather obviously started with a very loyal centric theme, but it's amazing how much we can talk about this thing and all find different facets of it. And like I bring up unnamed because they already had a format and they very much didn't talk about even certain episodes you go by, they wouldn't mention anything locally, not to their effort. There just wasn't much going on besides like, hey, this pub group related to this overseas team or whatever. And even Cholos would skip a couple episodes, and just because there wasn't action, there wasn't really anything happening. And then just the amount this has bled in and taken over their show, where it's almost like leading their news stories. And the same with you guys, where it was, we're going to talk about all this stuff, but the focus and then the stories that kind of just keep stretching you out and pulling you in, feels like there's so many layers that we can all find different facets and in areas that there's so much green territory, right? It doesn't feel like it feels like this beautiful forest where like there's enough for everybody, and there's like you can just keep pulling fruit off every tree, and there's like all this stuff. So it is amazing to be in that space where it doesn't feel like there's other people trying to come in and jump in, because as we said, we're all rising together and playing together, which is, I like to say when we all play together with Barcata, or just in terms of this too, and anything we do, when we all play together, we win. And that's really what it's about. It's, and if you're excluding somebody or keeping them on the bench, you're going to miss that pass. You're going to miss that, idea that just was supposed to be out there, that, was supposed to be part of the deal. So thank you for always giving your voices and giving space to other people too, which I've loved to hear your guests and the comedians and different voices you bring in that I'm sure learn more about our little world here too, just by talking to you guys. So thanks for being that lighthouse, as I like to call things and people lighthouses. You guys are definitely a lighthouse for me in terms of building this culture. So thanks so much.
Yeah. And that's honestly an honor to be even associated with a professional soccer team in our hometown. And
totally,
that's
for all of us.
Exactly. And that's the coolest part of it. And the fact that I think Loyal, I think Drew, I think Loyal, I think the locals, I think Loyal, I think, just so many great people that we've met. Go ahead and stick around, Drew. We're going to go ahead and do a little follow-up real quick. But if you want to let everybody know where they can find you, where they can find the locals, where to buy the membership, where to renew the membership, and all that great stuff, please.
We'll start with memberships because it's the bigger thing right now. It's the Locals SG, not SD, but SG as in supportersgroup.com/join. If you want to go direct to the page, or if you just go to the localssg.com, it's the first thing you see. Same with all of our handles on Instagram, on the Twitter, on YouTube. We are just the Locals. So if you search that or the Local Supporters Group, it should come up. And then on the other stuff, we're all at the Locals SG, and you can find the link to join on any one of those. So that is our memberships. And then I am Drew Steck, which is, as I said, at Drew Stork. Drew the podcast. It's up there on my jersey. I like to have that because people don't care what your last name is. They just want to tag you. So
Yeah.
that works. But yeah, the at Drew Stork, STORKDREW, as most people spell Drew, and then STORK like the bird.
There you go. I really love it, man. It's a pleasure to have come across you, and I can't wait to just keep going and enjoy everything that comes out from the Locals, and work together and hopefully cheer for the San Diego Loyal really soon. Thank you,
Love it,
man.
dudes.
And this episode 57, man. There you go. All right.
Yeah.
And cool. Bam. Do this, and we are done recording. All right.
Dude, thank you for your time, man.
Yeah,
No, once you guys wind me up, I told you I'm like a